thank you for meeting with us this morning.
Absolutely.
This is great. We had a nice trip in, and this is great. So you're kind of coming into just about 2 years after you won this.
Yep.
And there's several things I wanted to talk to you about this morning, but one of them is some of the key bills. Well, first of all, maybe we should get to the budget, because that's been all over the place. So let's talk about that.
Deal,
I know you've been kind of critical of the man upstairs there on that, and there's some positive work with the budget. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yep, good. Well, President Obama just put in his budget.
Yes,
and so that's always a doozy, right? It's $2 trillion more in taxes.
Right.
And just this kind. It's not. The Democrats have never put in a budget that balances, as far as I know, ever. It never balances.
Right.
And so that we're never going to solve the economic problems. And then our team comes in. And last year, we all know Paul Ryan referred to this budget process as a crap sandwich. And Boehner called it cleaning the barn. And so that's never good. And so, unfortunately, we not only agreed to the budget for last year, but we agreed to the budget for this year. And so the budget, the numbers already are in place that go through next September. And so folks may not know that. And so we have to decide whether we're going to accept that new high number that busted the caps by $80 billion. It was $50 billion last year and $30 billion this year. And we gave up all of our conservative riders, which just means all the policy along the way, the immigration reforms, the Syrian refugee stuff, the Planned Parenthood video stuff. And so all of that didn't make it into the budget, which is must pass and becomes law. So we lost all that. So now we're back at the negotiating table trying to come up with a budget that makes sense. And the biggest issue for the folks back home is that under Republican leadership, this budget increases the deficit this year by another $100 billion. So the deficit goes to $544 billion.
And does this take in the unfunded liability thing?
No.
That's another whole issue.
That's $100 trillion off on the side, in addition to the $19 trillion in debt we just passed a few weeks ago.
And I know you're on the House Budget Committee, so okay, so you got kind of an inside track on this.
Right.
So hopefully, and where is that in process in terms of dates and stuff that they might be making a decision on this?
Right. So the Budget Committee will complete our work by the end of the month. And so we're working on a compromise with the leadership. The leadership wants to make sure all the trains are running and we don't have a budget shutdown, whatever. So we're working on an agreement. But most of us have to go home, and 153 Republicans voted against that budget number last year, just to put it into context. So most Republicans do not like this new high number. And so we're working out some compromises, and some of those might include, like you brought up, the entitlement programs, Medicare, Social Security. There's a $100 trillion problem. And so it's pretty easy to find $50 billion in reforms out of a $100 trillion number. So we're there's 30 or 40 proposals out there. And let's reform Medicare, let's reform Social Security. Both of those programs are insolvent in 2034.
Right,
so the next generation of kids are not going to get those programs unless we do reform them. And so there's some win-win. And the Democrats want to do it as well. They want those programs to be in place in 20, 30, 40 years for the kids and whatever. So there's some easy moves to make.
Wow, because I know you've been all over the place with the
budget. Yeah.
One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about too is some of the major House bills that you've introduced. And I was looking at some numbers, and between the number of bills that are introduced and the ones that eventually get passed, it's a really small number. I mean, these things have to go through so many layers.
Years and years.
But you've introduced some interesting ones in terms of the economy, in terms of you've got a universal savings plan. The armed pilots is interesting too. Yeah, because there's the district that I am from with Culpeper, there's a lot of pilots out there, so a lot of Republican pilots.
Right, and the pilots came to us and said, hey, we got to do something to beef up security, and so we put in a bill to help out the pilots. That thing is pretty widely agreed upon, but it's still a matter, like you said, to get a large number of bills through. It's very hard, right, to get your bill up.
Right,
and to
because
get
they get
to take
introduced,
it.
and then depending, you've got several co-sponsors with them, and then it kind of moves its way up. But is there any one of those bills that's closer to your heart than another one?
Well, the biggest one.
I mean, there's several. There's several good ones.
But the balanced budget amendment is probably the one, and so I've got 60 Republicans signed on to that. We're going around every day. You get 10 more folks to sign on, and so there's 5 other folks that have the same bill, just variations on a theme, and that's the one. But if we pass that, that would put tremendous pressure on us to get it right quickly. So some people are a little not so fast on it. But when you look at the financial problems we're having today, the front page of the Wall Street Journal it's the economy, the stock market's diving, and so we have to do something to reassure folks we're doing the right thing.
Wow, cool. You're now in sort of the political arena. Are you enjoying this as much as the classroom?
No.
No.
Not that much.
No, I was wondering, because that's one of the things that I find so intriguing is your background coming from philosophy and education, and now you've kind of entered this whole political arena.
Right.
And I know there's maybe some similarities, but I just feel that there's a lot of the teachers still there in terms of let's show you guys how it could happen.
Yeah, no, the classroom was fun. I mean, being with students and young people and going through this, the time flies by, and this, on the other hand, is torture at times. I mean, it's pain. It's politics, right? It's you're butting heads every day and all. But on the other hand, this is hugely rewarding, right? I mean, I wouldn't trade this for anything.
Okay.
So it's.
So you're still having fun.
Yeah.
Sort of.
And fun. All right.
Yeah.
So it all depends on There's a huge meaning in my work. I feel like I'm here for a reason. There's purpose in what I'm doing, and those outweigh the fun part, right? So not every day's fun. But some of it's fun. We have, everybody's friendly up here, contrary to public opinion. It's not about right or left. Everyone thinks it's about Republicans and Democrats at war up here. That's not. I talked to Bernie Sanders at the White House Christmas party.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, Bernie, I've only been here a year. But to me, it's not about the left or you guys over here are the conservatives and free market types. For me, it's about the middle. And the middle, everybody in the middle is making the deal for a $4 trillion budget that they can dole out to all the special interests. I said, is that the way you see it? Yeah, Dave, what the heck you think it is? That's what's going on up here. That's the problem. Right? And so the conservatives and the liberals agree on the problem. We just keep passing more and more money off to special interests. And that's the hard part to overcome.
Well, the other thing too, just in terms of education, coming in here to Washington and being in the Cannon Building, I'm curious, I want to share with our readership and viewers that are seeing this, what is the hierarchy in the Cannon Building? I mean, you're on the 3rd floor here. Is there some kind of tenure thing? Because the various states don't seem to be organized alphabetically or anything.
Right.
How does that work a little bit?
Right.
We'll
that's
digress
the fun.
a little
That's
bit.
the fun stuff. No, I came in as a freshman, but Eric stepped down a month early, so I came in actually with a little tenure. I came in like a sophomore.
I see how that works. Okay.
And so
cool.
if you're a freshman and they roll the dice, and if you get a bad draw, you're up on the 5th floor with the cages. And it's not. So I lucked out. I'm on the 3rd floor, and then most of the senior people are down in the Rayburn building, and it's nice marbly walls and whatever. And if you're high up here, you might be in Cannon around the other side of the building, and they have balconies, and it overlooks the Capitol. So some of the senior people choose to be there, but it's just beautiful.
Well, this is nice though. This is great.
I love it.
I just
look out
was
at the
curious.
Library of Congress.
That's from one of the reasons I wanted to come in.
No, that's the fun stuff.
Yeah, because
right.
you represent, several 100,000 constituents in several counties. So it's kind of neat to see where you are when you're not. But you're a fairly regular visitor to Culpeper and Louisiana.
Yeah, once a month at least.
I know economics is your real strong suit, and you have a lot of bills there, but national security is another one. And it just seems like the world situation, there's a lot of hot spots right now. So hopefully, if one of these GOP candidates is successful, are there any hot spots out there, areas, because I know North Korea is kind of coming up, and of course the Mideast and Syria and immigration. Any real strong areas more than another, because there's so many.
That's the #1 issue in the polls. And it's kind of interesting because it's not just national security, but it's kind of a nexus between national security,
and domestic,
immigration, like you said, open border. ISIS has said they're looking for ways to come on in and infiltrate us, our military, et cetera. The refugee crisis, and all that fits together. And so then on foreign policy, there's about 5 hot spots: China, Russia, ISIS, Iran, Korea are the big 5 hot spots in the world. And our defense budget, in real terms, if you look at the number of ships and planes and soldiers and et cetera, is
there's
way
an imbalance.
down.
Yeah,
right.
There's a real imbalance.
And so we've gone through exercises of where do you say you have 3 chips to put down, right? There's 5 hot spots and you only got 3 chips because the economic pressure is such that we can't afford everything. Where would you put the 3 chips in order to put your main defenses? And boy, that really makes you become aware of what's at stake. That if you only have enough resources to cover a few of the threats substantially, then a couple of the other threats are coming at you a little bit. And so there's some real challenges for us.
Well, and I think this is one of the things too that and again, this is a personal observation, when President Obama came in and 8 years or so ago, and he was talking about change, I want to change, I want to change, and hope and all this, and everybody bought into that. I mean, it sounded like a great message. But from my viewpoint, and again, I'm speaking here, but the change that he was talking about was of a deeply, deeply fundamental change in terms of our global position. So it feels like in his mind that the United States doesn't necessarily have to be the superpower or the leader, but that we can level this playing field and we can be more like everybody. I don't think that's what a lot of people bargained for. And I know when in the recent GOP debate, when Rubio kind of made his error or whatever, and he was repeating, and they got him on that, and they were saying, oh, he knows exactly what he's doing. But that's where to me, that's where Rubio was coming from. And a lot of people didn't get that because they're saying, no, he's incompetent, he doesn't realize. But on that fundamental level, I think Rubio was correct. He does know exactly where he was trying to take this country, rightly or wrongly. So I think in terms of national defense, that's suffered, and hopefully that can get rebuilt.
Yeah, no, that's right.
I think that was the fundamental change there.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder the same thing, like with Israel and stuff. To me, this is horrible. It's like, is this our exit strategy from the Middle East, that you would just abandon our allies? I don't know. It seems like that's happening.
He put that out there. He won the Nobel Peace Prize ahead of time. It seems like the Peace Prize should be correlated with peace.
Yes.
I don't see any peace breaking out, right? So you look at the evidence after 7 years. Peace is not breaking out. There's hot spots now in everywhere he's tried to do this fundamental change. And so things aren't working out right. A guy named D'Souza wrote a piece on Obama 7 years ago, et cetera, and tied to Obama's worldview, right, and Dreams of Our Fathers and his autobiography and that kind of thing. He's very down on the colonial powers, the British, the French, carving up Africa, et cetera, and that's fine. But the problem he makes is he associates us with the colonial powers. We were the dominant power after World War II. We could have taken over any country in the world we wanted to, and we didn't. Instead, we set up the Marshall Plan, made friends with our arch enemies, the Germans and the Japanese, helped them set up a constitution, free markets, trade. Now we're all friends. And so that happened because we were such a force in the world. We set up the Bretton Woods post-World War II liberal order, right? Liberal in my Adam Smithian sense. And that free trade and free markets and trading, countries that trade together don't bomb each other. No business wants to bomb another country where you have your business people and your investment and et cetera. And so that order was doing fine in relative terms in comparison with the rest of world history. And so Obama came in straight from the faculty lounge at Harvard or wherever and wants to impose utopia. Well, that's hard to pull off, and he didn't. He didn't make the rest of the world angels. ISIS is over cutting off people's heads, and Obama seems very reluctant to name what's going on over there, and so that's a problem.
Absolutely a problem. Hopefully, let's segue in then to the GOP race, where we're going with all of this. I mean, the Democrats, it looks like, have got Bernie and Hillary. We'll see what ends up happening there. But the GOP, I mean, we're starting to drop off. Christie has dropped, and I liked Christie, but he and Trump maybe too much aligned on some of their things. Fiorina has come off. Carson is still hanging there. So with the pack that's left, and I don't want to put you on the spot saying who you're for, but how do you think this is going to shake out? Do you have any ideas how it might shake out? Trump's still going to stay on top? Is the GOP going to embrace him? I don't know. I think he's such a force. And I think really when you think about it, both on the Republican and the Democratic side, there's angst.
Right.
Which is why
That's the key. Right. That's
which
the
is
key.
why you've got a
Right.
Trump and a Sanders,
Right.
because there's angst registering on both sides. We're not happy with what's going on, and so in some ways, perhaps these two extreme figures. But it's just, to me, it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. Well, the evidence is kind of in it. About 60 to 70% of Republican voters are voting for these outsider candidates.
Yes.
And so why is that? What are the outsiders saying that the insiders aren't? Well, number one, they're saying, get rid of these crony capitalists, special interests, and all this. You got to have a lobbyist on D.C. in order to cash in. The American people are totally fed up with that. But it's more than that. That's always been the case. Now we got the anxiety you just mentioned, and that anxiety is from 1,000 open terrorist cases in the 50 states. According to our head of FBI, and the open border and immigration and the refugee crisis and ISIS and et cetera. And what's the Republican Party's message on that? And that's the right answer. I don't know. And so if the Republican Party isn't messaging on that, there's a vacuum, and that vacuum is being filled by the outsider candidates.
Yeah.
And so that's what's going. If you look at the top three issues, the ones we were just talking about, the terrorist threat, and then the economy's in there,
The
and
economy
and the folks that are addressing those issues are winning, and the folks that are ducking those issues are losing. And so it's pretty simple. Listen to the American people, and you win. You don't have to be a PhD in political science.
And
for
you know,
one.
this is a question that I probably should know, but I don't know. But I'm going to ask you: this business with the super PACs.
Yeah.
How is it that the super PACs can carry more delegates? How does that chemistry? How does that work? I mean, I'm understanding, like with Hillary, that she picked up a number of delegates from New Hampshire, even though Sanders won.
I know.
She
That's
picked up more delegates.
Right.
I don't understand how that works.
I don't get it either. No, it varies by state, I think.
But that is a curious dynamic that you could win, and yet there's not this corresponding ratio with the delegates.
Right. Well, that's another reason I think when you dig into that.
It should just be a popular vote. Just let the people vote.
Right.
I mean,
well, that's
why that to me would.
Well, and that's why the people are voting for outsiders, because they're infuriated, because no matter where you turn, the rules are stacked. In order so that the establishment candidates have a backup plan. Yeah. So Hillary loses the popular vote, huge, right?
Yes.
By 20 points.
Yes.
Ends up with more delegates.
She ends up with more delegates
because
than Sanders.
and no one knows the rules ahead of time, but all of the political leaders in the state were entitled to a vote that outweighed the vote of the people.
Yeah. See.
And so try selling that to the people, right? So
it's confusing.
then that motivates the people even more across the country, and they say this is fixed.
Well, you know what's curious to me too is even when you watch a lot of the analysts, you know, on Fox and some of these others, this Trump mystique. He's like Trump is trumping, and he's like untouchable because he doesn't need any of the money. He doesn't need. He can just do his thing. The question is, in terms of effectiveness, is he going to be a candidate that is supported and backed and able to move forward and get the support of the GOP? I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's my position.
I think he could.
Yeah.
I think he certainly could. I don't know whether the dynamics will allow it.
Yeah, my position to all the candidates, and he's come into my district to help me. Cruz has come in, Carson's come in, Rand Paul's come in, and so I've just shared my experience. I said I ran on the Republican creed, and up here I want things on paper, right? I want promises on paper, so I've just encouraged. And so Trump is putting some of that stuff out there, but I think a lot of people want to see, you know, hey, how are you going to govern? Put it on paper, and for the rest of the candidates too. But I think most Republicans are going to back the nominee, whoever it is.
That's my sense
I got a
too.
pretty strong sense that that's going to happen.
And when you were mentioning the Republican creed, we've actually been running in the paper a series Chuck Duncan has put together explaining those the tenets of the Republican creed, just because just for really education purposes.
And it's for the folks that don't know it, it's pretty much the American creed. I mean, free markets, equal treatment for every single person under the law.
Defense, it really touches
national
on the
defense,
key.
all
It
that,
touches on the
just
key
the
points.
basics, right?
Yeah, okay. talking about the GOP presidential thing and going back to Trump. And again, here's my kind of assessment of that. He is very bombastic and he's very out there, but he's a businessman that's coming into this political arena. He's got I've noticed in some of his more recent speeches a little more tactfulness, a little bit more reserved. My sense is he's not. He's very intelligent. He's not a stupid man, and that if this were to come about, where he were to get that he would surround himself with very smart people. That's my sense of it. I mean, if it ended up with him, and I wondered if you felt the same or thought that could work.
Yeah, well, that's what he said, and I mean, people are giving him a huge boost on they broke down the poll the other night on New Hampshire, I saw it, in terms of where you at in terms of running the economy. And he was at the top. He and I think it might have been Cruz or a couple